She was just a little girl walking home. A pink cell phone, a quiet neighbourhood, and a darkness no one saw coming. This is Criminal Interrupted, and today's episode is one of the most heartbreaking I've ever had to write. We're talking about the murder of Elizabeth Olten, a vibrant, loving 9-year-old girl whose life was stolen in a way that defies understanding. This is a story about innocence, violence, and the haunting question of how such cruelty can live so close to home. Before we begin, I want to offer a content warning. This episode discusses the murder of a child and includes references to violence and mental health. Please take care while listening. Elizabeth's story deserves to be told with tenderness and truth, not for shock value, not for a spectacle, but because remembering her matters. Elizabeth K. Olten was born on December 15, 1999, in Jefferson City, Missouri, to Patricia Patty Carwile Priest and Dale Olten Sr. From the beginning, Elizabeth was surrounded by a large and loving family. Siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of whom would later become the stewards of her memory. She was the youngest of 5 children, with 2 sisters, Stephanie Adrian and Candace Olten, and 2 brothers, Anthony Olten and Dale Olten Jr. Elizabeth was a 4th grade student at Pioneer Trails Elementary School in Jefferson City. Her teachers and classmates described her as sweet, cheerful, and full of life. She had a gentle presence, the kind that made people feel seen and safe. Her favourite things were simple and joyful: horses, baking cookies with her mum, doing puzzles, and playing dress-up with her pets. She loved music, especially Hannah Montana and Taylor Swift, and often sang along to their songs with the kind of joy only a child can muster. She was known for her bright smile and her love of animals. Her family recalled how she would dress up her pets in costumes and giggle at their reactions. She was imaginative, playful, and deeply affectionate. Her mother, Patty, later described her as, quote, the light of our lives, a child who brought joy into every room she entered. Her neighborhood in St. Martin's, Missouri, was quiet and close-knit. Children played outside, rode bikes, and walked to each other's homes without fear. Elizabeth was one of those children, trusting, carefree, and unaware of the dangers that sometimes hide in plain sight. She lived just 4 houses down from the Bustamante family, and occasionally played with Alyssa Bustamante's younger siblings. There was no reason to suspect that anything was amiss. It was a quiet Wednesday evening in St. Martin's, Missouri, a small town nestled in Cole County, where neighbours knew each other and children often played freely. Elizabeth, just 9 years old, had asked her mother for permission to walk to a nearby friend's house. It was a short walk, just a few houses down, and she promised to be home by dinner. She left around 5 p.m., carrying her pink cell phone, a gift from her parents that she cherished. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the neighbourhood. Elizabeth never made it back home. Her mother, Patty, grew concerned almost immediately. Elizabeth was punctual, responsible, and never wandered. Within minutes of her expected return, Patty began calling neighbours and friends. No one had seen her, so then the panic set in. By 6:15 p.m., Elizabeth was officially reported as missing. Law enforcement responded swiftly. The Missouri State Highway Patrol, local police, and eventually the FBI joined the search. Volunteers from the community poured in, neighbours, classmates, parents, and church members, all desperate to find the little girl who had vanished without a trace. The search was extensive and emotionally charged. Authorities focused on the wooded area behind the Olten and Bustamante homes, guided by the last known signal from Elizabeth's cell phone. The terrain was dense and uneven, but searchers pressed on, combing through bushes, ravines, and undergrowth. Alyssa Bustamante, a 15-year-old neighbour, participated in the search. She appeared concerned, even helpful, but investigators were already piecing together inconsistencies in her stories. Alyssa had told police she walked Elizabeth partway home, but didn't see her enter her house. She claimed that she took a shortcut through the woods. Behind the scenes, suspicion was growing. Investigators soon learned that Emma Bustamante, Alyssa's younger sister, had invited Elizabeth out to play that evening. Emma lived just 4 houses down, and Elizabeth had visited before. But this time, something felt off. Alyssa Bustamante, then 15 years old, had asked Emma to bring Elizabeth over. As mentioned before, Alyssa claimed she'd walked Elizabeth partway home, but didn't see her enter her home. Alyssa's demeanour raised red flags. Though she participated in the search and appeared concerned, her story didn't fully align with the timeline. Investigators noted inconsistencies and began to probe deeper into her background. Born on January 28, 1994, in California, Alyssa Bustamante's life began under the shadow of instability. Her parents, Michelle Bustamante and Cesar Bustamante, were both teenagers at the time of her birth and struggled with serious issues that would shape Alyssa's upbringing. Her mother had documented history of drug and alcohol abuse, with multiple arrests related to theft and possession. Her father was incarcerated for assault, serving a 10-year sentence in Missouri prison. By the age of 8, Alyssa and her 3 younger siblings were placed into the custody of their maternal grandparents, Gary and Karen Brooke, who lived in St. Martin's, Missouri. The move was intended to provide a stable home environment away from the chaos of their parents' lives. The Brookes were active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Alyssa regularly attended youth activities and services with them. Outwardly, Alyssa appeared to be a typical teenager. She earned A and B grades in school and was described by teachers as intelligent, though sometimes disengaged. She had friends, participated in church events, and lived in a modest ranch-style home just 4 houses down from Elizabeth Olten's house. But beneath the surface, Alyssa was battling profound with emotional and psychological distress. She had a fascination with death and violence that she expressed both online and in private writings. Friends later recalled her asking disturbing hypothetical questions, including what it might feel like to kill someone. Several of Alyssa's classmates and peers described her as intelligent but emotionally volatile. She was known to engage in self-harm, often showing cuts on her wrists and arms. Her behaviour was described as dark, moody, and at times attention-seeking, though not outwardly aggressive. She had a fascination with death and in violence that she expressed both online and in person. Alyssa's mental health history was extensive and deeply concerning. In 2007, at age 13, she attempted suicide and was hospitalized for 10 days in a psychiatric facility. She was diagnosed with clinical depression and prescribed antidepressants, including Prozac, which she continued to take in the years leading up to the murder. She engaged in frequent self-harm, often cutting her wrists and showing the scars to her friends. Her online presence reflected her inner turmoil. On MySpace and YouTube, she listed her hobbies as cutting and killing people. In one video, she was seen touching an electric fence and encouraging her younger brothers to do the same, an unsettling glimpse into her fascination with pain and control. Despite the structure her grandparents tried to provide, Alyssa's psychological needs appeared to outpace the support available to her. Her grandparents were described as loving and involved, but they were also raising multiple children and may not have fully grasped the severity of Alyssa's internal struggles. Her grandmother, Karen Brooke, was present during Alyssa's police interrogation and fled the room in tears upon hearing her granddaughter's confession. The Brooke household was, by most accounts, stable and religious. Alyssa's grandparents took legal custody of the children in 2002, moving them from California to Missouri in hopes of a fresh start. They enrolled Alyssa in school, encouraged her participation in church, and tried to instill discipline and routine, but Alyssa's behaviour grew increasingly erratic. The day after Elizabeth Olten vanished, October 22, 2009, law enforcement intensified their search and began interviewing individuals who had last seen her. Among them was Alyssa Bustamante. During her initial interview, Alyssa appeared calm and cooperative, but her account of events was inconsistent. She claimed to have walked Elizabeth partway home, but didn't see her enter her house. She also mentioned taking a shortcut through the woods, a detail that would later prove critical. Investigators noted her flat affect, her lack of urgency, and her emotionally detached demeanour. Though she denied any involvement, her story didn't align with the timeline established by Elizabeth's family and cell phone records. Law enforcement began to suspect that Alyssa knew more than she was letting on. Based on these inconsistencies and her proximity to the last known location of Elizabeth's cell phone signal, authorities obtained a search warrant for the Bustamante home and surrounding property. They also began reviewing Alyssa's online activity, which included disturbing posts referencing violence, death, and self-harm. The following day, Alyssa was brought in for a second, more intensive interrogation. By this point, investigators had uncovered significant evidence, including her journal, which contained a chilling entry written the night of Elizabeth's disappearance, information that Alyssa had dug 2 shallow graves in the woods behind her house days before the murder, her request to Emma to invite Elizabeth over, suggesting premeditation. This interview lasted over 2 hours and was conducted at the police station with her grandmother present. Investigators confronted Alyssa with the journal entry, which read, "I just fucking killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them, now they're dead. I don't know how to feel ATM. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the oh my god, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kinda nervous and shaky though right now. K, I gotta go to church now. Lol." This journal entry was scribbled out, but detectives were able to uncover the evidence. Faced with this evidence, Alyssa's demeanour shifted. She became visibly nervous, shaky, and eventually confessed to the murder. Initially, she claimed that it was an accident.
She died. So, I burned her body.
Matter whether the body's burned or not. They'll go through and do an autopsy. And they will discover every injury on her body and the cause of death. And I understand you said she fell, and that's why she died. However, they will know from the autopsy if she was shot, if she was hit in the head, if her throat was cut. They will know all of that from the autopsy. So we need to know the truth, because at the end of the autopsy, they will know exactly how she died. So we need to know now the full truth, full disclosure right now, so it doesn't come out later that it wasn't telling the full truth.
She died.
How did she die? 9-year-old girls don't just die.
We were messing around. And she fell back and hit her head.
Was her throat cut?
Yeah.
After being confronted with the evidence and her grandmother's emotional outburst, Alyssa finally revealed what happened to Elizabeth Olten.
What did you use to cut her throat with? A pocket knife? A kitchen knife?
Kitchen knife.
Okay. Where's that kitchen knife now?
The sink.
The sink of your house?
I believe so.
Okay. Did you stab her?
Afterwards.
Stab her body or where?
Yes.
Okay. How many times did you stab her?
2.
2.
I, cut through, and she died. And I just sad.
I do apologise about the audio then. That was the interrogation footage audio. Alyssa just admitted to luring Elizabeth into the woods, strangling her, stabbing her, and slitting her throat. Her motive was simple and chilling. She just wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. Alyssa led investigators to the burial site, where Elizabeth's body was recovered later that day. The grave was shallow and poorly concealed, covered with leaves and brush. During the investigation into Elizabeth Olten's murder, authorities also questioned several individuals close to Alyssa Bustamante, including her then-boyfriend Dustin. His role in the case was peripheral, but his interrogation offered insight into Alyssa's social circle and raised early questions about whether she may have confided in someone before committing the crime. According to court documents released in response to an open records request by the Associated Press, Dustin was repeatedly questioned by law enforcement following Alyssa's arrest. Investigators were thorough, probing whether Alyssa had acted alone or if anyone else had knowledge of her plans. Dustin told authorities that Alyssa had mentioned that her little sister's friend was missing and that police had searched her house. Dustin said that he had found a black knife or a box cutter in Alyssa's backpack, a weapon that Cole County prosecutor Mark Richardson was much smaller than the knife used in the murder. Dustin denied knowing about Elizabeth's death until being informed of it by the FBI, which caused him to become ill and later vomit. Cole County prosecutor Mark Richardson also said, "All evidence we had pointed to only one person, Alyssa, being involved in the murder." Following Alyssa Bustamante's chilling confession to the murder of 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten, the legal system faced a daunting task: how to prosecute a 15-year-old for a crime so brutal it defied comprehension. The case raised complex questions about juvenile justice, mental health, and accountability. Alyssa was arrested on October 23, 2009, the same day Elizabeth's body was found. She was initially charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. Due to the severity of the crime, prosecutors quickly moved to have her tried as an adult, a decision that was upheld by the court. This meant that Alyssa faced the possibility of life in prison without parole, the harshest sentence available under Missouri law for juveniles tried as adults. The prosecution's case was anchored by Alyssa's handwritten journal, which described the murder in graphic detail. Prosecutors also presented evidence that Alyssa had dug 2 graves in the woods days before the murder and had used her younger sister to lure Elizabeth outside. The defense argued that Alyssa's mental health history, including clinical depression, suicidal ideation, and her use of Prozac, should be considered mitigating factors. They claimed the medication may have contributed to impulsivity and violent ideation. On January 10, 2012, Alyssa pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and armed criminal action, avoiding a trial and the possibility of life without parole. The plea deal was accepted by the court, and on February 8, 2012, she was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole and an additional 30 years for armed criminal action. During sentence, Alyssa addressed Elizabeth's family directly, quote, "I know words can never be enough, and they can never adequately describe how horribly I feel for all of this. If I could give my life to get her back, I would. I'm sorry." Elizabeth's mother, Patty, responded with raw emotion, calling Alyssa, quote, "an evil monster," and expressing her enduring grief and anger. The case sparked national debate about how juveniles should be sentenced for violent crimes. While some argued that Alyssa's age and mental health warranted leniency, others felt the brutality of the murder demanded the harshest possible punishment. Ultimately, the court balanced these factors by allowing for parole eligibility, though Alyssa will not be eligible until she has served at least 35 years. Elizabeth's family, especially her mother Patty, became vocal advocates for justice and reform in the years following the murder. Patty's grief was raw and public. She described Alyssa Bustamante as an evil monster during sentencing and vowed to fight any possibility of parole. The Olten family held vigils, spoke at public forums, and worked to ensure Elizabeth's memory would not be overshadowed by the horror of her death. The community of St. Martin's, Missouri responded with an outpouring of support. Pink ribbons, which was Elizabeth's favourite colour, were tied to trees and mailboxes. Her funeral featured a pink casket and a horse-drawn carriage, a tribute to the little girl who loved animals and fairy tales. In the years after Alyssa's sentencing, Missouri lawmakers began re-evaluating how juvenile offenders convicted of a murder were treated under the law. Initially, Alyssa was eligible for parole after 15 years due to Senate Bill 26, which allowed parole hearings for juveniles convicted of second-degree murder. But in 2024, Elizabeth's family successfully pushed for a change. Senate Bill 754, signed by Governor Mike Parson, amended the Juvenile Code to block parole eligibility for underage defendants convicted of first or second-degree murder. The timing was bittersweet. Alyssa's parole hearing had already taken place, and the bill came one day too late to prevent it. Although the hearing was not open to the public, prosecutors and family members vehemently opposed Alyssa's release. As for now, she remains incarcerated, and her earliest possible release, if parole were ever to be granted, would be 2059, when she would be 65 years old. There is no publicly available information detailing Alyssa's current behaviour, rehabilitation efforts, or activities within the Missouri Department of Corrections. Elizabeth Olten was just 9 years old. She trusted the world around her, and she trusted her neighbours. She trusted Alyssa Bustamante. And that trust was shattered in the most unimaginable way. A bright, loving child whose life was stolen not by a stranger, but by someone she knew, someone who she should have been safe with. Alyssa Bustamante was a teenager battling profound mental illness. Her life was marked by abandonment, depression, and self-harm. But those struggles, while real and deserving of compassion, did not excuse what she did. They complicate the narrative, but they do not soften the loss. Elizabeth's murder reminds us that mental health matters, that early intervention matters, that the system meant to protect children, both victims and perpetrators, must do better, because when they fail, the consequences are irreversible. As we close this episode, I want to leave space for remembrance, for Elizabeth, and for the family who carries her memory, and for the countless children whose stories never make headlines, but whose lives are no less sacred. Thank you for listening.